All right, we're live here again at Understanding CBD. I'm your host, Stephen Wallman from Wallman's Apothecary. A fantastic guest again today, and a new topic. I guess we're exploring the college perspective on cannabis. We have Harley Sutton, CEO of Thanks Naturals. She's here again. And I don't know if we mentioned this last time, but not only is Harley CEO of Thanks Naturals, she's also former president of the Cannabis Club at USC. That's University of Southern California, not University of South Carolina if you're on the East Coast, Gould School of Law and Marshall School of Business. Um, let's bring Harley in. Hey, Harley.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. Glad you could make it in again on Understanding CBD. We got some great feedback from the last time we had a conversation. I know I had a good time. So
Yeah,
I'm
last
glad you
time
can
was
make
such
it
a
back.
blast. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're talking about, your role in the Cannabis Club on campus at USC. And when most of the time people are thinking about the Cannabis Club, they're thinking about a bunch of kids hanging out, getting stoned, right?
Yeah.
Um, But, my first question for you is, obviously I know it's not that, but what is the mission of the Cannabis Club and how does it contribute to the community on campus?
Yeah, so most college campuses in some form of another are starting to have cannabis clubs or have had in the past few years. At least I can speak for USC. The undergrad has a cannabis club, the law school has a cannabis club, and the Marshall School of Business has a cannabis club. And together, we all work together to have this Trojan Cannabis Network. And the whole mission, I think, of all of the clubs, and I've been involved in each of them in different ways, is just create a network to talk business of cannabis, legality of cannabis, and it's a comfortable space where people are not only interested, but enjoy having these kind of conversations. So it's really just exchanging knowledge and conversations and building relationships through the common thread of cannabis.
Gotcha. So not that you can't, is it open to smoking and consuming at these events as well, or is that sort of separate and not part of it?
Yeah, so what's really crazy is that's definitely changed. I think with the stigma of cannabis and the legality. A few years ago when I started, our meetings were just business. You definitely didn't consume. If you did, you probably didn't tell anyone. But now, more and more so, like we just had a 420 event in April where it was open to consumption. It was an evening event for like 3 hours. There was live music, a bunch of booths. Thanks Naturals, my company, we had a booth there, and it was open for consumption. So I think now more so, they're more willing to throw events. But I think if even just a couple years ago or a few years ago, it wasn't as common that was the case.
So do you think it's been the changing of legalization or the laws around cannabis that's easing this social acceptance of it, if you will?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I also think just accessibility. You can walk into your local grocery store now and see some form of cannabis products on the shelves, whether it's drops or gummies or even something more versatile like shampoos and conditioners. So I think that really helps as well because now it's a household object, and something that most people usually have in their shelves. So I think that schools and campuses are a little bit more open to allowing consumption in some form, maybe not on campus, maybe off campus, but still it's a college event. So their name is still tied in some way. So I think that has definitely changed.
Yeah, well, that's a interesting and good to hear. So with the club, what sort of activities or events do you organize to educate people that are curious about cannabis?
Yeah, so a lot of people come almost like in secret. They're like, "Is this something that I can join?" And we're super welcoming. And that's the first question that they ask. What is the club about? What are you guys doing? And at least at USC's campus, which has been an amazing experience with the cannabis clubs, we kind of have two main groups within. One is really focused on legality of cannabis, and that's really awesome because we've been able to work with local expungement attorneys, helping people clean their records that have been convicted of a cannabis-related crime that's now legal, and helping reduce that record or helping them start a new job, whatever that may be. And then there's also the business side of cannabis that a lot of people are very involved in. Personally, I mean, having my own company in cannabis, that's what I'm more interested in. So I usually guide those things, and they allow you to, we'll plan events where you're working with a cannabis company or get to tour the place, get to see a dispensary with like a full behind the scenes tour. So we like to have kind of two schools of thought in that you can help in some way. But yeah, those are the main two groups, I would say.
Okay. And as far as the members go, do you seem that there's like one type of persona, if you will, or like are they mostly male, female, certain demographic that you find are more drawn to this community, or
Yeah,
what's the
I mean,
situation?
you would think there is a type, but it really is a diverse group of people. I would say the only commonality is just very open-minded, but I think you have to be to work in cannabis.
Mhm.
But I mean, like that 420 event, for example, we had almost 200 people come, and it was all, you would have never been able to guess who was walking in that door. It was a little bit of everyone, which was really great to see.
Is it only available to students, or is it open to broader communities, these events?
Most of them are student only and like student invitations, but if they're a larger event, like a big 420 event, and it's just more of if it's a big celebration more so, they really open it to everyone. But typically the events are limited to students that are on
Okay.
campus.
So I have a question here also about events, because it's been my experience with CBD or cannabis events over the past few years where most of it was virtual and now more in person. The engagement with the general community I've noticed between a cannabis business, and I also help other businesses with marketing and so forth. We'll put out a show like this, and I'll find that hundreds and thousands of people might watch it, but we may only get maybe 10% engagement
Mhm.
online. And then when we do something face to face, people are sort of afraid to engage with us. um, what are you seeing from an engagement perspective? And are people more like lurking and sort of like testing it out? So like, is there a conflict or any relationship between remote or online events and then in person?
Yeah, so when I started my involvement with the cannabis community here at USC, it was definitely more online focused, especially with the pandemic, and it was just a lot easier to throw events that way. And that had pros and cons, and so does in person. What I love about being virtual is we got to have a lot of great guest speakers and panelists that we wouldn't have been able to have to attend, that either wasn't LA based, but they were professionals up in Northern California or in another state. So that was really amazing because we got a great group of people to come and speak to the community. But also, what was great about being virtual is that it wasn't just people that were located on campus. We really were able to open up to more people and join the events as well. And that had great engagement because you just log on by clicking a button. You don't have to drive anywhere or anything. And then I think shortly after, there was a drop in engagement just because when you start having things in person, it becomes a little bit more real. And I think a lot of people were a little bit wary to do so, especially right after coming out of a pandemic and also the stigma that comes with cannabis. It's a lot easier to do it join on a screen than join in person. But I would say in the last year, I don't know what is in the air, but everyone is looking to get involved. I was so surprised at our most recent events that are having like 100 or more students and a lot more engagement. So I don't know if it's with the stigma that we talked about, but as of recent, very recent, there has been a ton of engagement.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I love to hear that people are feeling more comfortable, and it sounds like you've created an environment where people do feel comfortable and minimized any of the risks that they may perceive with that. So the club on campus, does it collaborate with any other or have any other partnerships with other clubs or anything that the university is doing at USC or the
Yeah.
broader community, or do you typically like work as an independent group?
We have to usually operate more independent with the campus. I always like to joke that we're the black sheep of USC because they don't really want their name tied to our events or money tied. You usually get funding from the school, especially when there's a ton of engagement, the school is very willing to help pitch in for events and stuff. But we tend to be on our own. And all of our partnerships are more so not with USC's name necessarily, but just with our cannabis club's name. So we'll have businesses or that contribute samples, or if they want to offer a tour of their dispensary. We have a lot of attorneys that like to work with us for volunteer hours, and we help with expunging records, like I mentioned before, or even just having conversations as well.
Okay.
So it's definitely, we do partnerships. For our 420 event, we had like 20 or so booths of different cannabis businesses, some just candles, some with local artists that help make the design work for cannabis companies. So any which way, I think the best part of it, though, working with cannabis businesses and attorneys, is just showing like how many opportunities there are in the cannabis space. It's really like limitless. If you happen to be interested in cannabis, but you do artwork or you do finance or accounting or whatever your passion is, you can definitely merge the two, which is really great to see, especially for young students.
Yeah, that's what really was my next question, was engagement within local industry, whether it's a cannabis company or not a cannabis company.
Mhm.
How does the organization help facilitate these communications with the industry, and not just industry, but also other advocacy groups?
Yeah, so we really try to help. We're such a hands-on organization, and we even call ourselves like the Cannabis Network, not even just a cannabis club, because we
Hmm.
really try to merge the two. Of there's so many job opportunities, businesses out there, creative different jobs you can work in within the cannabis space, and then there's all these eager students that have amazing qualities and tools and specialties, and it's truly, I mean, cannabis, although it seems eerie, is like it has the skin and bones of any other business. So if you are great in finance with numbers, or if you're really creative artwork, I know people that just do creative design for cannabis companies. You can really merge your specialties, which is really great. So through the club and the exec team, we really try to merge. If we have a student that loves to do sales, we try to merge with that opportunity and find a company that might be interested in talking with them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's good that you're integrating into the community. And you're right, skin and bones of a regular company, people don't really think about when they think about getting into the cannabis industry. Um, Most businesses really aren't plant touching.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because we'll get new students and they think working in cannabis is like working at a dispensary, which is like not the case whatsoever. Every cannabis business needs an accountant. They need someone doing art graphics. They need a VP of finance. They need someone helping in marketing or advertising. So the opportunities are truly endless.
Yeah, and it does make sense to specialize in cannabis because we do face some different challenges
Hmm.
in running. Like if you are an accounting for a cannabis company, you have different rules that you need to follow as far as taxes go, whether it's federal or state.
Hmm.
Marketing, you have to by different rules because some opportunities. The reason we created Understanding CBD is because there aren't many platforms where we can openly talk about
Totally.
cannabis.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really a fascinating industry to work in, and it's so booming that if you say you want to work in cannabis, there is truly endless opportunities. It's not as competitive as you think, just because it's growing faster than people are getting involved in.
Are there any classes on campus for cannabis specifically?
Yeah, so USC actually just started offering their first, for the law school, at least I can attest to, but they just offered their first class in cannabis. It's like a night class once a week, but I think we'll start seeing across any college campus that's going to start being more of a present class offered. I really do hope. It was just offered one semester, and I hope they continue to offer it because it's really interesting. I mean, it's so interesting from a business perspective, but also a legal perspective as well.
Yeah, that's what I would think. And as because it is a law school and you are focused on law and business, what are some of the legal and policy issues that are discussed in the club?
Yeah, so we definitely, of course, first and foremost about states being legality of different states and how that's transforming so much in the past couple of years and the upcoming couple of years. What I always was really fascinated about is we speak to a lot of attorneys who help people that used to grow illegally, and now that it's legal, try to help them grow legally, because now there's different rules to the game when you're growing legally. And it's really cool speaking to those attorneys too, to work with their clients and see how we can help, or volunteer hours and helping. And from the business side too, it's really interesting because now it is so much more expensive to grow when it becomes legal, because now the government's involved and they take their piece as well. So I think from all aspects, it's super interesting. So we like to have conversations about all the things going on, or as much as we can.
That's cool. Very good. What else do I want to cover today? I think looking forward and looking ahead, as you see the development of the industry, and as the stigma seems to becoming less and less, and more people are using cannabis, you're getting more research out there, more studies. What do you see in the future for the cannabis network, the cannabis club, and some sort of aspirations you may have for the group?
Yeah, I definitely see more events in our future, more panelists, more speakers, because I mean, they're really interesting and people have a lot to say about cannabis. And the more conversations you have, just like the one we're having, the more people become aware and engage with the cannabis community. I also think that hopefully more engagement just overall with people, as we have more events and more interesting conversations as well. So those are two things I'm really looking forward for next year.
That's great. And, I guess another question is, since we're from different generations here, my generation, we're just seeing cannabis being legal, but I have 20, 30 years
Mhm.
of illegal cannabis activity, illicit market, and, looking over your shoulder to access cannabis. And you've heard a lot of the stories of, especially in California, what people have done in order to free the plant or make it available. So there's still a little bit of PTSD with my generation about it. When I deal with mostly older clients, what do you see as, like, what's the word on the street with the younger generation, with people in college now and recent grads, about cannabis? Is it still looked at as something that's still really taboo for the masses? And do you see that changing?
I would say I see that changing. People are a lot more freely using, not as look over your shoulder scenario. It's definitely something they're more open to and kind of almost like agreed upon that people are using before events, after events, whatever the case may be. I see it viewed a lot more like alcohol is, which is great because cannabis is so much better for you. And now that it's legal, it's definitely shouldn't be something you should be scared or wary of.
And I'm glad, interesting you said that, because I see most people making that relationship between cannabis and alcohol as a recreational tool. What do
Mhm.
you see? And that's one of the reasons why we have these conversations about cannabis as wellness. And most people think of cannabis medicinally, as a wink, wink, like, yeah, sure. Where does the medicinal part of cannabis, is that starting to break into the minds of the youth, that this is a really smart alternative to some of the less healthier, more harmful pharmaceutical drugs or self-medicating tools that people use?
Yeah, I think that is the second thing that's kind of catching up. I think now cannabis is definitely a lot more openly used just for fun on the weekends. But I think the medicinal part is like kind of an aha moment for a lot of people right now. Like for example, things naturals, we saw muscle freeze for soreness and body oils for your skin, and there's so many different benefits that come with cannabis that you can start using now in so many different ways, that I think that is definitely catching up as well.
All right, that's cool. Well, we got a comment here from LinkedIn. Joseph says, "I'm also hoping young students get their vote out to anti-cannabis Republicans out of Congress and the U.S. Senate." Now, thanks for the comment, Joseph. We do appreciate everyone who engages with us. But politically, from your experience, I don't like to go either way, because to me, a politician's a politician. But do you see, from your perspective, any one side, whether it's Democrat or Republican, being more of an ally than the other?
Um, yeah, I mean, there definitely is, but I sometimes am wary to involve politics too much because, it's interesting what happened in California. Now, before when people were growing illegally, if they were in trouble, they'd pay a little fine, but it was still worth it for them to grow. However, now growing legally, it's this weird dichotomy of course, I'm pro cannabis, but once it becomes legal, it becomes a whole different game. And now I've worked with cannabis attorneys that are helping people now grow legally. And she even says herself that like 85% of her clients go back to growing illegally because it's become so expensive. And then you have redlining and people checking in on you every month, stopping by to make sure that, your cannabis is 6 inches off the ground. Yeah, and it just becomes a whole different game. So of course, I think a lot of people are pro legalization, but sometimes I'm a little hesitant to bring politics into it because at the end of the day, it'll always be cheaper to grow illegally. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy.
Yeah, yeah, and we have to be very wary of our politicians in general,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really going to be very interesting to watch the next few years as this evolution in the industry. It is still very new.
Mm-hmm.
There is a transition period, and we'll see where things go and where they end up.
Yeah.
And I think just the most important thing that I always talk about when it comes to politics is, if you're in your local community, find out who represents you in your state Senate, and start, in your local state, and then also who represents you in the U.S. Congress, and have a conversation with them and talk to them about what cannabis means to you, what cannabis does for you, and educate them, because there's a lot of things on their plate. There's a lot of people tugging at them. There's a lot of people throwing money at them, and it's never harmful to share your opinion. And the more you can, the better off it's going to be. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
my
great
thought.
advice.
Yeah. Anything we didn't cover today, Harley, that you'd wanted to talk about?
No, just besides, Thanks Naturals is really growing right now. So come check us out at thankscbd.com. But besides that, thank you again so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
That's awesome. Are you guys doing any events coming up that you wanted to talk about?
Well, we just last Sunday, we had a mocktail event where we used our CBD drops to teach how to make the best CBD mocktails. And we'll be having events throughout the summer. So check in on us, and hopefully you or anyone listening can join us.
That's cool. And you promote these on your socials, on your website? Is there an email? Like, they go to your website, sign up for an email list and get notifications?
Yeah, email list is you can sign up on thankscbd.com, but also our Instagram and Facebook is at thanks_naturals, and you can keep up with us on there as well.
I love what you're doing. Thank you. Keep up integrating into the community and supporting everyone that really wants to, see the benefits of cannabis. So you're doing really good work, and hope to have you back again. You've mentioned these mocktails. We'll have to
I'll
get
have to
some
show
of
you how
your.
to make one.
You're going to have to show us how to make one for sure. All right, Harley. Well, thanks again so much for joining us, and we will be seeing you again soon. Everyone that listens, we appreciate it, and you can share this with anyone you like.